Hello friends, welcome back to the bench. Our patient is 2007 Legacy 2, which misfires on cylinder 1. And actually, funny story about this one, I just talked to the customer because I received the box yesterday and there was a ticket number on it, right? I checked the ticket in the system and there was like no communication on that ticket. And I thought, oh, that was strange, but I figured we probably exchanged everything via email, and then I told the customer just submit the ticket, and they did. So I sent a payment link and asked for the return address, and the customer is calling me like, hey, we already paid and we gave you the address and everything. And indeed, in the other ticket, because there was a duplicate, but in the box it was this ticket, and I just went by the ticket number because that's what I do. So that was kind of funny, but everything's good. Actually, it was funny to me, and they sounded a little concerned, like, hey, we already paid. What happened to that money? Because maybe they thought like that I'm gonna say like, no, I didn't receive no money. Pay me. Or maybe they thought, well, we submitted 2 tickets. Do we have to pay twice now? It happens. We're just humans. We make mistakes. Unlike neural networks, right? Neural networks make no mistakes. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic. And this is pretty much the subject of our discussion today, the job market. Recently, there was a conference that is being held in US and in UK. I don't remember what it's called, but it's basically a conference for talent acquisition people, talent acquisition professionals. So basically recruiters, hiring managers, all that stuff. And obviously, like pretty much any conference nowadays, the word AI has been repeated a few thousand times, maybe a few dozen, maybe a few hundreds of thousands of times. So basically, what is the plan for 2025 and how's that gonna look? And I must tell you guys that it's not looking good, and it's looking very bleak for the next, I would say, 3 years, maybe 4. Why 3 or 4 years? Well, 3 maybe 4 years is an average retention period of software engineers, typically, especially when they're young. When we get older, we kind of appreciate a stable job, right? But when we're younger, especially in this profession where all your entire career you're learning, you're acquiring new knowledge, so you're just kind of used to always jumping around and improving, maybe doubling your salary, maybe, and if you're in the same position or within the same company for multiple years, your yearly increases, the pay increases, are usually around 3, maybe 5%, sometimes even lower than that. And accounting for inflation, at some point you might find yourself making pretty much less money than you did when you started and having more responsibilities than when you started. That is a good time to just look for another opportunity, another job, because then you're gonna start at the higher level than you had before, right? Or at least typically that's how it worked for the past couple decades. Maybe a little less than that, maybe last 15 years. The majority of my career can be described that way. So that's why another 3 or 4 years of this to actually see the repercussions of these decisions. And what is so bad about this decision to go with AI? Because the conclusion is that we don't need recruiters anymore. We can have neural networks just analyze the pool of candidates and pick the ones that are adequate for the position, and pick the certain group, and then we don't have to do the calls with everyone, even though they're completely on a different boat, right? And I used to get about 3 years ago, maybe 4. That used to be very common. That recruiters would call me up about the opportunity, which completely doesn't align with my skill set or my experience, nothing like that. So, it was kind of a waste of time, waste of my time, waste of their time. Although it was more of a waste of their time than my time, because all I had to do is just answer the call and just talk maybe 15-20 minutes. They, on the other hand, they have to find me, categorize me, schedule the call, a few emails back and forth. That's a lot of overhead on their part. So it's more of a waste of time on their end than mine. So we might say that AI kind of solves this problem, right? Because the recruiter doesn't have to be involved in that process, and you might be right, at least to a certain extent. Now there's a very few calls, and the majority feels like you're applying to some black hole. You're not really involved in the process, and still I get offers, or not really offers, the inquiries for the positions that I'm completely unqualified for, and that was recommended by AI. So it's still as far as the accuracy of this, it's still relatively low, or it's not 100%, and that is the whole issue that I have with this. Because if we're replacing a human with the machine, then that machine should be accurate 100% of times, right? The last time we did something like that was the Industrial Revolution, where no longer skilled labor was required, because that was the bottleneck of mass production. And because we replaced skilled labor with machines. Skilled labor is, say, 80, maybe 90% accurate, meaning you're gonna have bad days, right? You're gonna mess up from time to time here and there. Something's not gonna go right. You're human, right? So say you're a welder in the car factory, right? So the majority of your welds are perfect, but from time to time, quality inspection reveals that you messed up a weld here and there, and that happens very rarely, but it happens. We replaced those skilled welders with welding machines, right? And welding machine does it perfectly every single time. There are no bad days, as long as the machine is working correctly, because machines also do break, right? But as long as the machine is working as designed, as built, it's gonna be accurate 100% of times, and that was the whole purpose of replacing welders with welding machines. Now we are replacing skilled labor, because you do need some skill to actually be a recruiter. If you think it's just making phone calls and and I don't know, just filling out paperwork and stuff like that. No, it's like every profession. It looks easier from the outside, but it's much more intricate when you actually have to do it. And there are people more and less talented, more adequate for that work, less adequate. Like every profession. So now we are replacing them with a neural network, which is, at best, 80% accurate. Right? You're not gonna find a neural network that will be overall more than 80% accurate, or maybe you'll find 82, maybe 86, but it's never gonna be 100% accurate, right? So what is the purpose of that? This argument does not really land with me, that you're saving time and stuff, because imagine your car, right? You have a car. Every time you turn the key in the ignition, the car starts and you drive. 100% of times. Now, from time to time, the car breaks. You catch a flat tire, or you turn the key and the car doesn't start, right? And you have to fix it. Now, if that happens 20% of times, which would be expected from the neural network with 80% accuracy, at 20% of times the car doesn't start when you turn the key in the ignition. What do you do with that car? You replace it. You either fix it so it's reliable, or if it's just too old, just every week something breaks and you just keep trying to keep up with the repairs. Then what are you gonna do with that car? Are you gonna use it? No, you're gonna drop it, because it's not reliable. It doesn't work, basically. It plainly doesn't work. But we are willing to do the same for talent acquisition jobs. And it's basically the main premise of this is to replace the recruiters. Alright? And don't underestimate the repercussions of this, because it already looks way different in the last or versus the 3 years earlier. It's completely different nowadays, but it's gonna get even worse, because they're doubling down on this whole technology, even though it has not proven itself to work. But what it has proven itself to do is reduce your cost, your labor cost for talent acquisition. And here's the problem, because the big companies that are very few and far between use their own internal recruiters and their own internal system, and so that might not be great improvement for them, because they reduce their recruitment staff, the talent acquisition staff, by say 30%, or maybe even 50%, or maybe even more. But the quality of candidates is going to go down, and that's not how they make money, right? So risk to reward ratio is kind of bleak in this case. So they're probably not gonna go full on the AI and just replace the whole recruiting stuff with robots. But the companies that are smaller are relying on recruiting companies, the companies that are just specialized in that one thing, and they only recruit people for companies, right? There's plenty of them out there, and some of them specialize in technicals, like they find software engineers maybe, or even specialized. I've had some recruiters that I interacted with that are specialized in PHP, and they only hire engineers for PHPs, and that's their specialty. So if you need a PHP engineer, you go to that company, and you know that you're gonna get, or you expect you're gonna get high quality service that is catered to this particular niche. So those companies, to them, that is very lucrative to replace their half of their staff with the machines, because first of all, you don't have to pay half of your people. You just need to buy a subscription or whatever. Second, if the robot finds a job, you don't have to pay the robot the commission on it or anything like that, right? So that seems very lucrative to the companies that are doing just recruitment, nothing else. So of course they're going to jump on that subject. They're going to jump on that wagon very quickly, because reward is significant and the risk minimum. So that in turn is going to make significant changes to the process of finding people, and it's going to lower the quality of workers that you find that way. It also, obviously, for us engineers and us blue-collar workers, it makes it really difficult to find a job, to find a good job, or to find a job in general, which already right now is a big problem, especially in my profession, but it's going to get even worse. You know, I've personally, because people complain about recruiters, and I've personally complained about a lot of them, and I've complained about a lot of stuff regarding that, and I think I've already mentioned it, that if I had known what I know now, or if I had known where the things would land with this whole talent acquisition thing, I would be a lot more appreciative to all those recruiters that were playing on my nerves. You know, because you never know how good you have it until you lose it. I didn't know that it could be way worse than it was when I was complaining about it. Because here's what happens when you work with a real life human recruiter. It's their goal to get you hired, right? Either to fill their metrics, if they're hired by the company as a recruiter, or to get the commission or whatever rewards they get for finding a talent, right? And then if the person is hired for longer than 3 months, you get a little bonus or something like that, right? So they're gonna want to land you a job. which means behind the scenes they will advocate for you because it's in their interest as much as it is in yours. Sometimes they will change your resume to better align with the job description. Sometimes they will, just kind of scour your GitHub repo, maybe, or your GitHub profile, or, just kind of, gather information about your, anything like that, that technically they are doing you a favor, because perhaps you do have the skills that are required for this position, but it's not quite well written on your resume, right? And that's the reason you're not getting noticed by that employer. And what recruiter can do is just, either introduce you personally to the hiring manager, the employer, or update your resume, or maybe completely, ignore your resume and just create your profile in like those, hiring those systems that they use for managing all that, and just manually curate your profile to better describe your abilities or your competencies, that kind of stuff. That is very valuable, and that's why I've been until now, until a couple months ago, I've been pretty successful in this profession, mainly probably because of that. Because humans are usually impressed with my resume, but robots are not. Because to robots, I'm not a human, I'm just a resume. You know what I mean? That means that now it is on you. You no longer have this assistance of the recruiter trying to fill the position, trying to get you hired. Look what happens here. It catches only on one side of my iron. That sucks. I need a new tip. Actually, I do have a new tip. I just need to change it, I guess. Anyways, that is what they are planning, and they are very proud of that, because someone's gonna save some money somewhere. Just basically ruining the market for us, the workers. That's what's coming down the pipes in the very near future. That was the plan for 2025. So I'm thinking 25, 26, and 27, and hopefully around 27 the AI bubble is going to burst. I'm hoping for that. Unfortunately, another factor that impacts this is what basically impacted the software engineering bubble. Just too many people being trained in buzzwords, basically, in buzzword technologies. So now you have plenty of those places that offer AI training, basically. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but there are, you as a user of AI, as an operator, you could call yourself a programmer because you just want to tell the neural network what you need, but you need to follow some rules so the neural network will understand you and produce good results, which is the same concept as software engineering. You want the computer to do something, So you need to tell it to do exactly, and exactly how to do it, and to achieve that you use code. So to efficiently tell the computer what it needs to do and how it needs to do it, you need to learn how to talk to the computer. So you need to learn the language, because that's what we use to communicate with computers. That's what we use to instruct computers to do something for us. We use the language that the computer understands. And the same way with neural networks, especially the large language models, if you want them to generate good results for you, you need to know how to write the prompt. Right? So I expect some of the training is revolving around that. Probably some of it is just introduction to neural networks and how to build a neural network, how to train it, different types of neural networks, the convolution layers. But these are all basics. It's not like you're gonna be a successful engineer if you just have this basic knowledge. So the same as boot camps. The boot camps would give you the basics of software engineering, of basics of certain language, and usually in the boot camps you see there's not that many of them nowadays, but there were plenty of them. They usually focus on the lower entry level languages, right? The simplest languages that are easy to set up. Say JavaScript, right? Maybe syntactically it's kind of a weird language, maybe not too simple, but to do anything in JavaScript, all you need is a text editor and a browser, which everybody has, and your code is going to work on everything: the phones, the tablets, computers, Linux, Mac, Windows, everywhere, right? So that's the very low entry, right, threshold, low complexity. Although, yeah, once you get into it, you see that the complexity is still there. But that's what the bootcamps would focus on, because that's easy to execute, right? It's not necessarily that this is going to be your language, that you're going to be an expert in JavaScript, but the lessons are going to be simple, and all we need is a browser, right? So it's easy for us, the teachers, and that's why we teach JavaScript. Not because JavaScript is something that you should know, but rather something that we can reliably execute well on in terms of teaching. Right, so now the same seems to be applied to the AI. So now we're gonna have many engineers coming out of these boot camps trying to put the foot in the door in the industry of artificial intelligence, or what we commonly refer to as artificial intelligence. That is going to add to this whole problem. So I reckon that another 3 years probably at least another 3 years before the bubble bursts. Which is not gonna be a pleasant thing for sure, but overall it's gonna be good for us once we do away with this whole AI nonsense. Technology that nobody asked for and nobody really wants anymore anyways. The only people that actually do want this technology are people that are going to benefit from it. I don't benefit from it. So again, going back to the 80% accuracy, you know, just as you would replace the car if it's 80% reliable and 20% of times it just doesn't work. But for AI, that's perfectly fine, that's perfectly acceptable, and they're gonna follow through. So now when you apply to any position, there's not gonna be a human even evaluating your application. There's not gonna be a phone call, and I can attest to that myself. I spent 2 months looking for a job, and the first month I had next to nothing, as opposed to 3 years earlier when I would apply on Sunday, and on Monday I would have my first interview or my first exploratory call, and then interviews pretty much almost every day, and I would just kind of plan it that I didn't want more than 1 interview a day. Sometimes I would have more than 1, but plenty of interviews. And again, I had plenty of rejections as well. I turned down some offers myself, but there was a lot of interest. There was, you know, and it took me a month last time to find another job. And I jumped on the first offer I received, but if I looked a little longer, I would probably find even better job. You know, but I wasn't prepared back then. I was not ready to be laid off. That was my mistake. And when I did find myself in that situation, I promised myself that I will never let myself find myself in such situation. You know. So this time around, I was ready. I was good and ready to be laid off. And even though it's still pain, and even though the market is what it is right now, I was prepared. So I kept the word that I gave to myself, that I will never be in that position again. But my point is that it's still a absolutely miserable experience now, and it's only gonna get worse according to projections of people that make these decisions, and they want to double down. They want to absolutely double down on this, and it seems like they think that even though it's only 80%, it's still better. And I can totally understand, especially the smaller companies that only do recruitment and nothing else. They're not recruiting for themselves, they recruit for others. I can totally understand that. I told you guys about my AI interview that I did, right? That was for the company that does recruitment. And I guess that job that they were recommending me for, didn't get it because they never responded, or it went nowhere basically, right? And now they're harassing me on Slack because now they have some opportunity, but I haven't responded yet. It's not like I'm ghosting them, but I'm giving them a taste of their own medicine. When I'm good and ready, I'll respond. When I have time, I'll respond. I don't at the moment. But that was, the whole process was, I actually talked to the chat bot that was asking me questions. That wasn't actually too bad. Meaning, what is that? Meaning I still, I passed, and then I had the interview with the human. I passed that one. It was low bar. Very low bar. So that wasn't a problem. But now, you're no longer a human. You are a resume. That's all you are now. So there's no wiggle room. So if you don't play the game now, your resume is never even going to make it to any human to look at it. That is a high bar. Back in the day, my resume looked completely different than it does now, and that was something that recruiters were interested in. I mean, it was pain in their butts because the resume would not convert to their system because of that, because it was unusual format, So yeah, they were kind of complaining about it, but they were interested because you could see the passion, You could read about my projects, my interests, all that kind of stuff that typically recruiters want to know, and then maybe not even recruiters, the employers. They want to know that. They want to hire someone who's passionate about stuff and creative, and all that is gone. I had to change my resume completely, do away with all that good stuff, and just start playing the game. I don't know how much of an effect that was, and that's another thing. You don't know what you don't know, right? You send your resume, and again, there's no feedback. I mean, the only feedback you actually get is the automated template rejection. Thank you, and we decided to move with someone else. But you don't get any feedback, that person had better this or better that or more experience, which I find, what's the percentage of people looking for a software engineering job that have more experience than I do. Typically, people my age with my experience, they hold positions, like management positions and stuff, right? So as far as the experience, I don't have much competition. So why was the other person picked? Well, some might be, age discrimination, maybe the racial discrimination. By racial discrimination, I mean the, equity, inclusion, that kind of stuff. On every application, you have to disclose your race and your not nationality, but your gender, your race, veteran status and all that kind of stuff. And that might be one of the reasons, you know, if they already have 3 white guys, and here's a, you know, a lady, lady of color, right? They're gonna go with her because, yeah, we don't have many women in our team, and we don't have many people of color, so we need some, right? In my view, that's kind of it's different kind of racism, you know, or ageism or sexism. You know, if you make your decision based on anything other than the competencies of the candidate, that's not good in my view. You know, I might be wrong, but in my view, all that should matter is whether you can get the job done, whether you're a good fit, right? And if it so happens that you only hire white guys, you know, doesn't mean you favor white guys. That was the pool of candidates. So now, out of fear of being called, you know, being accused of favoring white guys, you just hire diversity, right? You diverse your hiring. But as I said, in that case, you're making the decision based on person's gender, skin color, nationality, perhaps, which fundamentally I do not agree with. I'm sure there would be a better way to find equity and inclusion and diversity if it's natural. If we're forcing diversity, then, you know, it's in my view no different than actually discriminating that you're not gonna hire, I don't know, Polacks. You don't want to hire Polacks, and yeah, that's discrimination because it's not based on the abilities of the candidate, right? But as I said, now it's not going to be humans making those decisions. It's going to be robots just kind of sorting your resumes, and that's what recruiters want because that saves them money. But that's not what the employers will want. But for the employers to actually realize that, it just needs to fail dramatically, and it will. I mean, it will. I expect it will, because I don't think the machines will be able to actually pull off the work that recruiters have been doing, which in my view, or as I expect, is going to result in a lower quality of candidates, which will negatively impact both the recruiting companies, because now they're gonna kind of pay the price for, you know, not performing well, and the employers, because now they're gonna have to deal with inadequate candidates, and that's gonna affect the timelines. That's gonna affect obviously the money and stuff, and that's also going to negatively affect them as far as the public relations or their image on the market, because there's going to be a lot of turnover. That doesn't look good. So there are going to be repercussions of this. And so I guess my advice would be, if you have a job, don't quit it until you have another job, and make sure that when you're switching jobs, don't look at the paycheck alone, because sometimes the companies that pay really well, they are just kind of gambling, you know, and they want the top talent, they want to pay well, but they stop existing after a year because the numbers didn't add up. The math did not math the way they wanted it to math, and you find yourself out of the job. So look at the stability other than the paycheck, and sometimes it's even worth to take a lower paying job in exchange for better stability than chase the highest paycheck and get hired in some startup. There's plenty of those medical startups nowadays, like a lot of them. Fintech, there's not that much in fintech, but you find some fintech startups. Back 5 years, 6 years ago, there was startup on top of startup, and everybody was complaining that we have more positions to fill than the candidates, right? And yeah, but also we had more startups than the consumers that actually needed those. Pandemic contributed to this as well, significantly, because a lot of startups were created then, because the new reality, right? The reality changed a bit, or significantly. Companies going remote, but not actually going remote, but doing a typical business as usual in the office, just with the exception that the person is not in the office, and that never works. That's why a lot of companies are now not doing remote work, because they didn't do it right. It's not like remote work doesn't work. It's you have to do it right. If you look at it as we're gonna do everything the exact same as we did when everybody was in the office, then yeah, that's not remote work. There are companies that do it right. I interviewed for one of them. Unfortunately, I wasn't good enough. Actually, it was kind of a self-sabotage in a way. I told you guys about that. I acknowledged in the pull request that I haven't finished certain things, because I figured, I don't have time to work on this. It perfectly displays my abilities and stuff. But they went binary on this. It either works or it doesn't work. Doesn't work, you're gone. So that was this part was kind of a self-sabotage, but I would have felt a lot more depressed about it if it was only self-sabotage. I did not consider that the service I was connecting to and grabbing data from, I did not consider the security aspect of it, which was my bad. Perhaps if I spent more time on it, I would have gotten it. But this is something that that you get a feedback on it on the pull request. So again, it's kind of an unnatural process, right? It's that's not how software engineering works. That you just spend a week making something and it's perfect. No, it's an iteration. You deliver something and you get feedback, and you forget about something. That's why we have code reviews, right? But that was my mistake. So even if I did fix the stuff that I didn't fix, that I knew that had to be fixed, I would still not pass, because I didn't sanitize the data coming from the service, which must be considered as user input. So either way, I wouldn't have passed that. But it was a very unnaturally high bar. So I'm kind of glad. And in a way, I'm kind of glad I didn't get that job. Although it was remote, and as I said, they do the remote work correctly, right? There are no stand-ups, no meetings, no sprints, just work that needs to be done. And some planning, I guess, but that's why companies now are trying to move away from remote work, mainly because of that. They just didn't do it right. That's all there is to it. But we'll see where it goes. As I said, just hang in there. If you're looking for a job now, play the game. You have to play the game. No way around it. At this point, it doesn't matter how creative you are, how competent you are, and what skills you have. No, it's just you gotta get your resume so the robot notices that resume, and then maybe hope for another person to actually read it. Alrighty, hopefully that wasn't too depressing. Thank you guys very much for watching. I do appreciate you, and I shall see you in the next one.